Bonjour à tous.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to go fast because it's already 1 p.m. What I've just heard is exceptional, and I can see that everyone who is active can have a different way of acting and with a different vision. But all this is going in the same direction, in a positive direction. We've heard social entrepreneurs, we've heard major international industries and their CEOs, and all these individuals are interconnected by their own personal history. If you look at the personal history of each of the people who talked this morning, you will understand that their impact that they are creating today originates from the questions they have raised in the past and the life that they have lived before. And so I would like to tell you now that I'm here today to talk about the fact that responsibility is the first question that you have to raise. What is my individual responsibility? And what are the responsibilities of companies, local authorities, and how can we actually change things? And in 1992, and indeed it was the time then, there were only few people talking about ecology and the environment or a positive economy. And social entrepreneurs. And so you can see here that there were these areas with no incineration and that there was no recovery of energy there. So who's responsible for this? Who are the consumers responsible for such things? Are companies or local authorities who are supposed to manage waste? Or still other stakeholders? Nobody knew actually who was responsible, and so that means that nothing was going to move forward. And it's a very important point to have in mind in this debate that we are having today around the positive economy, because at one point in time, people have to meet, people have to work together based on joint indicators, and they have to take their responsibilities. And unlike what was written in the text of OECD back in the 70s, actually already said that the polluter is the one who actually generates an impact. That is to say, the consumer. So that means you and I, everyone on the planet, are the one. We all is responsible for paying for the impact of what we consume. But from the individual point of view, is it possible for us to manage that? Is it possible for us to manage our waste? Can I recycle my bottle of water? Can I recycle a can? I cannot. So then the OECD decided that it had to review its definition, and this is why it is so important to have our international institutions as well, because they decided that companies were responsible for allowing each individual to not to pollute. That is to say, to give them a way not to pollute, so that the companies actually became the ones who were responsible for this. And this was very interesting in terms of innovation, because companies, when they receive a mission, very often they decide to actually put together indicators and methodologies in order to fulfill the mission. But this is not what they did in that respect. They decided that they wanted to work together and to unite their efforts in order to go further and to move further beyond the problem. That is to say, they decided to pool their resources. And this was extremely important from the social point of view, because they even united with their competitors and between producers and retailers. So you can see that normally they are not at all in that type of philosophy. They are reluctant to unite and they oppose their competitors, obviously. So, like this, they really decided to actually pool their efforts. 49,000 companies actually united in France in order to act on this challenge and to really take further action. Of course, they were quite successful, but there is still much to do. Now, let me tell you about their success stories. Now, the first one is, they decided to unite and to pool their efforts in order to create a company. So they didn't want to give money. For example, it was not going to be a tax paid to the state or to local authorities. They decided to create a new company, a company that was going to have a specific status because it was not going to generate any profit. Everything that it would actually generate would be re-injected into the system every year. And the state said, okay, we can give you this specific status. You are a company, but at the same time, you will not pay any tax on revenues. So this was a major decision made because this would represent approximately 1.5% of the sales figure that would have had to be paid to the state. Now, recycling for some companies actually represents 5% of their sales figure. So they did accept this constraint and went even further than that. So what did they do? Well, they decided, well, we are going to collect the money of companies. Each time there is a can to be recycled, each time we actually put a can on the market, there's going to be part of the price that goes to recycling and collection. And so what they did is bring together all that money and work with partners. Who are the partners? Local authorities. So that means that the private sector decided to delegate part of its activities to the public sector. So quite the reverse from what normally happens. So these corporations decided that the best partner was the local authority, and they were right in saying that, because local authorities had, the resources needed to collect waste. So there was the system that was put in place, and they started. And they went from 12% recycling to 67% recycling efficiency. So that means that they have been very successful. How much did they invest? 4 billion euros over the past 20 years. So within the next 5 years, companies are going to invest an extra 4 billion euros, and the increase of the share of recycling in companies' revenues is considerable. That is to say, that it goes up. And the only thing that companies want to have is the ability to anticipate. They want to make sure that they can anticipate. Of course, we want to make sure that recycling goes up. Consumption is stagnating right now, and the recycling rate is not going up any longer. Companies have invested an extra 35% in recycling over the past 3 years, and the recycling rate only went up by 3%. So this is a very important challenge that we have to face here. Now the question is, what is the actual return on this investment? Of course, we have to work in solidarity because, of course, companies pay for that, but also when you buy a product, you pay for recycling as well. So this is what we call solidarity here, because of course, if we are not able to ramp up in recycling, of course, there's going to be an important environmental impact, but also there's going to be a dissymmetry of understanding. That is to say that, companies won't understand because they're going to think, I carry on investing in a system that has no return on investment, whether at social, environmental, or economic level. So this is something that we have to manage together. It is an imperative that we do that. We have to find a solution for that. And for me, the solution to that problem lies in the indicators, because we need to understand where it works and where it doesn't work well. We need to know what we want to act on rather than sprinkling some of our solutions here and there, whether we work with local authorities or social entrepreneurs. Of course, social entrepreneurs have a considerable impact in terms of awareness raising. Same thing as elected representatives, when they talk with citizens and tell them that they need to sort their waste because it allows for the protection of the environment. Of course, this is having a profound impact. And when a person actually sorts waste, of course, it will be a very positive trend that will be started. And of course, it contributes to a better well-being of people. Now, people will be able to better live together. So what we really want to focus on is creating links with everyone else. Can everybody understand the logos? Can everybody understand how to store it? Then the answer is no, even though we've been using these logos for 20 years now. So, over the past 5 years, we have developed an action plan so that there would be sorting instructions on packaging, for example. For people to know what they can sort, what they cannot sort, and so forth and so on. This initiative is a free initiative, is really reflecting a positive economy here, because it had a lot of impact. Now 10 billion packagings actually have these instructions, and this is free because the company actually pay for that on their packaging. So what's the impact? Well, the consumers now know where to put the packaging. They know how to sort. So this means that we have less sorting mistakes. That means that we have the materials in the right place at the right time, and that we avoid situations where something that could have been recycled ends up in the landfill or in the incinerator. So the second thing we really would like to have is transparency in terms of good practices, best practices, and methodologies. I talk a lot about this with authorities now. Approximately 15% of them have cost accounting. That is to say that they actually know how much they spend on waste. They know where the money goes, where they invest, but we cannot anticipate that as stakeholders. So it's very important that they do that. And the last thing that we need to set up is a strong and durable recycling industry. Unfortunately, this year, in 2013, 3 companies recycling plastics are going through very tough difficulties, almost bankrupt. Why is this such an important subject? Well, you can only sort if you can recycle. There's no point in sorting if there's no recycling, right? And eco-emballage now has more than 700,000 recycling certificates. 93% of what you put in the yellow bin is recycled now in France. It's huge. It creates jobs, as we said before, and it allows many people to carry on doing this job. So the recycling industry has to be protected, and there should be investment in the recycling industry. So this is why we want to work together with the public bank for investment in order to make sure that the recycling companies become durable. So this is what I wanted to tell you now to conclude this morning's session. Sorting is essential. I know that sometimes it's the children who actually push you to do it, and do it themselves. In the cities, people sort less than outside the city, and this is the first environmental thing that you can do. To protect the environment is the first thing you can do. It's very important. It's very much connected to the positive economy, and I would like to thank you all for your attention. Thank you.